You weren't supposed to see her like that. Not when the washer was rattling beneath her. Not when the straps of her top had slipped just far enough to make you hesitate at the doorway. Not when the house was supposed to be empty. Just you and the silence. And definitely not when it was your father's wife sitting there. I came back from my run early, too early. The sky was still pale gray outside, sun behind the trees, morning air thick with that August weight. I kicked off my shoes at the door, towel around my neck, shirtless, still catching my breath. The laundry basket was half full. I figured I'd knock out a quick load before breakfast. My dad wouldn't be home till late afternoon. Leah, was supposed to be at yoga or Pilates or wherever she usually disappeared on Saturdays. But when I opened the door to the laundry room in the basement, she was already there, sitting on top of the washing machine, legs crossed, phone in her hand, gaze fixed on the screen until she looked up and saw me. Her lips parted slightly, not in surprise, more like she was deciding whether to smile or not. "Didn't think you'd be back so soon," she said, voice casual but low, like we were already in on something together. I froze in the doorway, not because of what she said, but because of how she looked. Tank top barely holding on to her shoulder, bare legs in loose shorts, hair up in that messy bun that made her look like she'd just gotten out of bed, or never made it there in the first place. Cleared my throat. "Didn't think anyone was home," she smirked. "You run without a shirt now? It's hot." Her gaze lingered a second too long before she looked back at her phone. The washer buzzed beneath her, vibrating slightly. She didn't move. I stood there, awkward, waiting for her to get up, to leave, to do something. She didn't. "You can toss your stuff in," she said, nodding toward the washer next to hers. "Plenty of room." I moved past her, careful not to brush too close, even though the room was tight. The scent hit me first, lavender and something warmer. Not detergent. Her perfume. I lifted the washer lid, dumped my clothes in, and when I turned back, she was still watching me. "Gonna start it?" Yeah." I pressed the button. Nothing happened. She sighed, hopped off the washer, light, deliberate, walked around me, her shoulder grazing my chest, hand brushing mine. "Gotta close the lid first, genius," she said and gave it a tap. Then she reached past me, pressed the start button, and the machine hummed to life. She didn't step back right away. Her hand stayed on the machine. Her hip nearly touched mine. I could feel the warmth off her skin. The room was suddenly too quiet, even with the machines running. Then she stepped back finally, walked toward the door, stopped in the frame. "You didn't see anything, right?" I blinked. "See what?" Her smile was barely there. "Exactly." She walked out. I stood there like an idiot, washer humming, heart thudding. I didn't even know what that was. A tease? A test? A sound above, muffled then clear. The front door. And then my dad's voice. Deep, calm, familiar. "Hello? Anyone home?" I panicked for a split second. Did he see my car? Did he think Leah was alone? Did he know she was downstairs? Footsteps crossed above me. I moved fast, closed the washer lid, grabbed the empty basket, and headed for the stairs. By the time I reached the kitchen, Leah was already there. Hair fixed, tank top adjusted, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. "Hey," she said, looking up. "Heard the door. You're back early." Dad kissed her cheek. Class was canceled. Something about the instructor being sick. She looked at me as she said, "Weird. That's never happened before." She held my gaze, didn't blink. Dad turned to me. "You seen Leah this morning?" I shook my head. "Just now. Upstairs." He opened the fridge. "Gonna take a quick shower." As he walked out, I turned back toward the basement, pretending to have left something. Back down the stairs, back into that tight, humming room. And there, on top of my load of clothes, where I knew I hadn't left it, was a pale beige bra. Not folded, just sitting there, right on top. Sunday evening moved slowly. The kind of slow where every glance felt too long, every silence too sharp. Especially when someone in the room wasn't playing dumb anymore. Dad had passed out on the couch with the TV still on. The sound of golf highlights blended with his steady snoring. A beer bottle resting half empty on his chest. Typical Sunday. Predictable. Harmless. I went to the kitchen for a glass of water, but Leah was already there. She stood barefoot on the tile, wearing one of Dad's old shirts, loose enough to make you wonder what was underneath, short enough to make you wonder if she cared. The light above the stove cast a warm glow on her face. She turned when she heard me and smiled, like we were just roommates passing in the night. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "Just thirsty." She poured herself wine instead of answering. Same glass from earlier, just topped off. The clink of the bottle against the rim was louder than it should have been. I leaned against the counter, tried to focus on anything else. The fridge hum, the headlines flashing on mute from the living room TV. My own heartbeat. "You do laundry?" she asked casually. I turned, confused. "This morning," she added, not looking at me. "Find anything extra?" My throat dried instantly. I figured it was a mistake. I lied. "Was it?" she asked. That smile again, soft, like a dare wrapped in silk. I didn't answer. She didn't press. Instead, she sipped her wine, walked around the island, and brushed past me just enough for her hip to touch mine. And I let her. Then she said something that rewired the whole room. "There's another load in the hallway. You mind carrying it down later?" My mouth said sure before my brain caught up. She walked off without another word. Just a soft glance over her shoulder. An hour passed. Maybe more. Dad was still out cold. TV still flickering. Same swing replayed again and again. I sat in my room, door half shut, trying not to think. About her. About what she meant. About what I wanted to believe she meant. Then I saw it. The basket outside my door. Full. Folded towel on top. And tucked under the towel, just barely visible, was a small folded note. I picked it up, heart already racing. "Close the door behind you this time." The laundry room was darker now. The only light came from the hallway bulb, flickering slightly, casting shadows across the old tile. I placed the basket down and froze. She was already there, crouched near the dryer, back turned, pulling something from the bottom shelf, wearing a thin robe or maybe a wrap, tied lazily at her waist. "Didn't think you'd come," she said without turning. "You left a note," I said, trying to sound unfazed. "I leave lots of notes," she murmured. "Most people don't read them." She stood and turned slowly, folding a towel in her hands like it actually mattered. "You left your dad passed out, huh? He's not waking up anytime soon." She smiled small, knowing. "Then we've got a few minutes." She stepped closer, handed me the towel. Our fingers touched. Neither of us moved. Silence. Just the distant TV. The throb of the washer behind us. Then she said it. "I keep thinking about this room now. About this exact spot. You standing there. Me sitting here." She reached back, tapped the top of the washer with her palm. Once, twice. I swallowed hard. "This is crazy." "No," she said. "It's worse than that." She stepped in close, too close, and I didn't move. She looked up at me like she'd been waiting to, like she'd already made peace with the decision and just needed to see if I would follow. And I almost did. Her hand lifted, fingers just barely brushing the back of my neck. I leaned in, Her breath hit mine. Then, a sudden loud vibration from her phone on the counter. We both jumped. The screen lit up. Rick, Dad's name. She snatched the phone, silenced it, didn't answer. I forgot, she whispered. He sets alarms to remind him to drink water. You think he heard anything? She shook her head, backing away. Doesn't matter. It's too risky right now. But her eyes said something else entirely. Then she turned, pulled the dryer door open, and tossed the towel inside. Nothing in it. Just an excuse. I stood there, trying to find words that didn't sound weak or pathetic. And then she gave me one more. As she reached the doorway, she paused, looked back at me, soft, careful, almost shy this time. If I leave the door unlocked tomorrow, she said, you'll know what that means. Then she disappeared into the hall. Couldn't sleep that night. Not after her last line at the door. Not after the note. Not after the way she'd almost said it without words. The house was silent. TV off. Dad snores a dull rumble down the hall. But under it all there was a sound, faint, rhythmic. Like the hum of a motor under your thoughts. The washer. I got out of bed. Bare feet on the cool wood. Moved down the hallway slow, careful. The basement door was cracked just enough to show a line of light. Someone was down there. My heart jumped. This was either a trap or an invitation. Maybe both. I went down one step at a time, palms damp. The air was heavy with detergent and warm metal. When I reached the bottom, she was there, sitting on the washer again, barefoot, long t-shirt falling off one shoulder. Hair loose, darker now. The single bulb overhead flickered once like a camera flash. She didn't speak, just watched me. I closed the door behind me. Clicked. The hum of the machine filled the space. You came, she said finally. You left it open. That's not the same as saying yes. I didn't say yes either. You're here, she whispered, like that was enough. I stepped closer, until I could smell her shampoo over the detergent. Her hands were on either side of her, gripping the edge of the machine. She tilted her head, searching my face. Then she reached out and tapped the top of the washer with her palm, slow and deliberate. Not a secret anymore, a signal. This is the only place I can breathe, she said. You shouldn't. I started but stopped. I wasn't sure if I meant she shouldn't say it or I shouldn't be here. The sound came so fast we both jumped. The upstairs door opening. Heavy footsteps. Not slow like Dad's usual shuffle, quicker, like someone looking for something. She slid off the washer in one movement, grabbed my arm, yanked me toward the far corner behind the hanging sheets. We pressed into the shadow, so close I could feel her heartbeat against my chest. Don't breathe, she mouthed. We heard Dad's voice above us. Leah. Then the creak of the basement steps. He was coming down. I felt her nails dig into my forearm. The washer throbbed behind us like a second pulse. Dad's shoes hit the concrete floor. The light flicked on fully. He stood at the doorway, scanning the room. You down here? He called out. She pressed her forehead to mine, eyes wide, lips trembling but not from fear alone. I almost spoke, almost stepped out, but then Dad muttered something about his phone, crossed to the counter, grabbed it, and turned back toward the stairs. We stayed frozen as his footsteps faded and the door closed upstairs. She exhaled sharply against my neck. We stayed like that, forehead to forehead, barely holding on. Then she whispered, so quietly I almost didn't catch it. I can't stop thinking about you. I pulled back just enough to look at her. What did you just say? Her eyes didn't waver. You heard me. I swallowed. This isn't. I know what it is. She cut me off. I know what it costs. She reached into the pocket of her tee and pulled out something small. a folded square of paper, soft from her palm. "Take it," she said. I didn't. "Take it," she repeated, pushing it against my chest. I slipped it into my shorts without looking at it. "What is it?" She shook her head. "Not here." The washer stopped. The silence after it was louder than the noise. She stepped back, hair falling into her face. Her hands shook slightly as she retied her tee at the hip. Then she whispered, "If you open it, you'll know where to be tomorrow." Then she slipped out from behind the sheets, crossed the room, and left through the other door, the one that led to the garage. I heard it click shut. I stood there in the humming dark, holding the paper in my pocket, my father's footsteps still echoing above, and knew I'd already chosen. Morning felt heavier than usual. No noise from the washer now, no perfume drifting from the basement, no notes tucked under towels. Just the normal clatter of dishes and the hollow quiet of a house where nothing is supposed to be happening. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking when I poured my coffee. Dad had left early for a meeting. Leah was at the sink, hair still damp, long sleeves rolled up. She moved around me like we were strangers again. I couldn't tell if it was an act for me or for herself. On the table, my phone buzzed with a string of messages from friends. A pickup game at the park, dinner later, usual distractions. I stared at the screen and then slid it into my pocket without answering. I knew where I had to be tonight. She glanced over her shoulder. "Big plans." "Not really," I said. "Might just stay in." She nodded once, too quickly, like she'd already expected that answer. The folded square of paper from last night burned a hole in my pocket all day. I didn't open it until evening, in my room with the door locked. Inside, one line in small handwriting. "Garage door, 10:30 p.m. No phones." I powered my phone down, left it on my nightstand. Texts unanswered, call ignored. That was the first sacrifice, disappearing from my own life for a night that shouldn't exist. At 10:20 p.m., I slipped through the back door into the garage. The air smelled of oil and detergent, like every hidden corner of the house now belonged to her. The garage door to the laundry room was cracked, faint light spilling through. She was waiting inside. Leah sat on the edge of the dryer this time, not the washer. Legs crossed, robe tied at her waist. No phone in sight, just a half-empty glass of wine beside her and a shoebox at her feet. "You came," she said softly. "You told me to." "That's not why," she said, looking down. I stepped closer. "Then why?" She took a deep breath. "Because you're the only one who sees me anymore." The words hung between us like smoke. I said nothing. She slid off the dryer and opened the shoebox. Inside were old photographs, letters, a divorce certificate folded neatly. "I wasn't supposed to marry your dad," she said quietly. "It was survival. He was safe, solid. I thought I'd feel something again. But I don't. Not with him." She pulled one photo out, her younger self smiling at a lake. "I thought if I built this life, the loneliness would stop." She shook her head. It didn't. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She put the photo back and shut the lid. "I'm not asking for your pity," she said. "I'm just tired of lying." I stepped closer. "So why me?" She looked up. "Because you're here. And because you're the first person who looks at me like I'm alive." I exhaled, chest tight. "This can't go anywhere." "I know," she said. "I'm not naive." A sound cut her off. The garage door latch clicked. We both froze. Shadows moved across the narrow window. A neighbor? Someone outside? Footsteps on the driveway? She pressed a finger to her lips. The sound faded, but the danger didn't. My pulse thudded in my ears. "They'll see your car," she whispered. "You should have parked down the street." I didn't think. "Someone's watching." she said. I can feel it. I reached for her hand without thinking. She didn't pull away. The washer behind us clicked as its cycle ended, a hollow thud echoing through the room. The noise startled us both back into motion. She squeezed my hand once, firm. We can't keep doing this like fools. Not in corners. Not like this. Then what? Tomorrow, she whispered. Not here. Where? She looked at me, eyes searching, weighing the risk. Then she pulled a small key from the pocket of her robe and pressed it into my palm. Cold metal, still warm from her skin. Room 14. Evergreen Motel. Noon. If you don't come, I'll understand. Her fingers closed mine around the key. Then she stepped back, gathered the shoebox, and walked toward the garage door without looking back. I stood there, key biting into my palm, the silence of the house pressing in from all sides, knowing the danger wasn't imagined anymore. Someone had seen, someone had heard, and still I knew I was going to go. There are moments that feel like fiction before they happen. Moments that live in your head for days, weeks, spinning in loops until the lines between fantasy and memory blur. This was one of them, until it wasn't. The Evergreen Motel sat on the edge of town, faded green letters half-lit, like it had been forgotten on purpose. Room 14 was tucked in the corner, ground floor, blinds drawn. I pulled in from the side road. No other cars, no cameras, no noise. The key in my hand was already warm, like it had been waiting. I knocked once, then twice. The door opened just enough for her to pull me inside. She didn't speak. Neither did I. The motel room was dim, shades closed, a single lamp on the desk. The bed made too neatly, like no one had dared to sit. She wore black, nothing revealing, but it clung to her like a question waiting to be answered. Her hair was up, bare feet, no makeup, just her and me. We didn't ask if this was right. We didn't mention his name. We didn't talk about laundry rooms or basements or garages. She pressed her hand to my chest, the same way she used to press it to the washer, and whispered, "Now." Time disappeared. There was no past, no house, no rules, just hands, breaths, the feeling of something crashing that had been building too long. She shook in my arms when it was over. I didn't let go. We lay there in the silence of a room where no one knew us. Later, she sat at the edge of the bed, wrapped in a towel, staring at the floor. I sat behind her, unsure if this was the beginning or the end. "I'm not going back to that house," she said. I looked at her. "And me?" She hesitated. Then, "You can do what you want. Say it was a mistake. Say it never happened. I won't blame you. But if I don't say that?" I asked. She turned finally and smiled. Not the flirt, not the smirk. Something real. Tired. Brave. Sad. "Then maybe I won't be alone in this." That was her way of choosing. And mine was staying. 2 weeks later, Dad moved out of the house. Said he needed space. Didn't blame her. Didn't ask questions. Maybe he always knew. Leah stayed. Quiet. Composed. Distant. We barely spoke during the days. But every night, once the house was still, she left a sign. A note. A key. A scent. The washer running with nothing inside. It became our ritual. The sound of it humming in the night, our signal. Our space. One night I came home late. Lights off. Quiet everywhere. I thought she'd gone to sleep. But when I passed the laundry room, I saw it. Washer humming. Lid closed. And on top, folded into a perfect square, a note. I opened it slowly. Inside just 3 words. "Still want this." I looked up, and there she was, leaning in the doorway, barefoot, silent, the glow of the washer light blinking behind her, and her hand resting flat on the lid.